Welcome to the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast, a spinoff of the Substack Loud Nerd in the Basement, your home for authentic news and reviews on nerdy movies and TV shows. Now, time for the Friday News Roundup. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast, Friday News Roundup edition. As always, I'm your host, Adam Zolnai. Thank you so much for listening, however you may be listening. You can always catch this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, of course, as well as YouTube. Again, as always, highly recommend the YouTube channel. Got a bunch of shorts that always come out every week. Well, I shouldn't say a bunch. That's a little exaggeration. 2 to 3 a week. But really fun stuff. And as always, if you want to get the full Loud Nerd in the Basement experience, there's my paid tier on my Substack that allows you to get access to even more stuff. And you get to support me and help me continue to build this thing out, whatever you want to call it. The Substack, the podcast, all of it. I was able to, go see movies with the money that you guys provide. It's awesome. I really appreciate to all you who've upgrade your subscription. It has been such a big help, and I appreciate your belief and trust in me to deliver you something good. But you get some perks if you upgrade. You get to submit questions here on the podcast that I will answer. I got one today that's pretty fun. You get access to spoiler articles like the one I did a few weeks ago for Spider-Man Brand New Day, so you get my full spoiler thoughts on that movie as soon as I see it and it comes out. So you don't have to wait for, spoiler, the statute of limitations to expire on the spoilers. You get to hear my thoughts up front. You also get access to monthly rewind reviews. I did one for The Rocketeer that was requested by one of my paid subscribers, and I am going to have another one coming out next month. I'll tease what it is in a week or so, but it's a good one. You won't be surprised when you hear what it is. But if you want to read those, it's an in-depth review on older movies that I can really go just full spoilers on. I can look at the behind the scenes or what inspired it, or like The Rocketeer that I did this past week. I looked at some of the comics that inspired the movie or researched some of those and the history of those to kind of get an idea of what they were pulling from, which was kind of neat because I didn't know any of that stuff. So just really, really fun stuff. And the cool thing is, from right now until the end of August 31st, Monday, I am doing a sale on my paid tier. For 12 months, you get 20% off. Normally, it's $6 a month or $50 a year. But if you subscribe right now, you get 20% off for the first year of your subscription. So that would be like $4 and some change. So basically a cup of coffee, a cheap cup of coffee, gets you access to all this extra stuff, and you get to support me, which I really appreciate. But enough about my Substack. A ton of news dropped from D23 this past week. It's going to be a heavily Marvel show, so prepare for all kinds of nerdiness. So let's get into it. But before we get to the Marvel stuff, because that's just going to, that's going to take up most of the time here today, I wanted to talk really briefly about the Ahsoka Season 2 trailer that we got. Obviously, Ahsoka Season 2 is from Dave Filoni, and it's basically a continuation of the animated show Rebels, as well as some nods to the Clone Wars TV show, which Filoni also had a huge hand in. We got a release date for Season 2. It's coming out January 27th weekly, so I'm excited about that, although I wasn't the biggest fan of the first season, and the trailer that we got, it looked cool. The visuals looked top-notch. For all their talk of saying they were diminishing the budget, there's some shots in there that look amazing. Like the space battles looked like something I would see on the big screen, and part of me was kind of disappointed this wasn't a movie as opposed to a TV show, because it looks good enough to be on a big screen. But my problem is just I don't hate the Ahsoka character. I've never been like a huge fan. I thought she had a cool character arc in the Clone Wars TV show where slowly as she grows up and gets older, she gets disillusioned with the Jedi and decides to leave them after being framed for murder, and kind of goes about and does her own thing. And then during the time of the Empire, she helps the rebels because of course she would. And then her final act, well, it should have been her final act, was confronting Vader once more and finding out the truth about him. And then she should have died there, but of course Filoni had to bring her back through time travel shenanigans. But for me, the Ahsoka show itself just didn't feel like it was made by the same people. Like, I've said this a lot, but I do think Filoni is more of an ideas guy than a writer and director. The direction was okay. It wasn't anything astounding, but it just, the story and the characters for me just did not work. I did not understand Ahsoka's character arc. I didn't feel like she really had one. Anakin in the Clone Wars just felt kind of shoved in there to get people excited about the show. And that's kind of what it feels like for this season, where it's like, don't get me wrong, I love seeing Hayden Christensen back, but just to have him around as a Force ghost, and it's like, well, maybe too bad we couldn't see that with Luke. I mean, I know they got to do some de-aging and some technical wizardry to do that, but they've shown that they can do it. And I just, for me, and same with Thrawn. Like, I love Thrawn in the expanded universe as well, the old EU, I should say. And then even in the new Disney canon, Timothy Zahn's books are great there. And I didn't mind him in Rebels, and in Ahsoka, he was just kind of there. Like, yes, it was cool seeing him in live action, and especially because they got his voice actor to play the live action version of Thrawn, but they didn't do much with him. He just kind of stood there and, you know, twirled his mustache a little bit, which is not Thrawn. So I'm hopeful that they do a little bit more with him in this season now that he's officially back. We're no longer building to his return. He's just here. But like with Sabine, I hated that they made her a Jedi. It didn't feel earned or built up at all. Ezra was cool to see. The actor they got to play him is perfect. Same with Hera, like that was cool. It's just there really, for me, there wasn't much of a focus. Like Baylan Skoll, Ray Stevenson did a great job, but again, that character, I didn't really know his motivation. They were so vague about what he was doing there and what his goal was. It just, I didn't connect with him as a character that much. I was more attached to the performance. And I mean, I'm excited to see what, I can't remember the name of the guy who does it, but he's the Hound from Game of Thrones. I'm excited to see what he brings to it. And I wonder how much he watched Ray Stevens' performance to kind of maybe not emulate it, but kind of bring some characteristics over to kind of still make it feel like the same character, even if the character looks different, is maybe acts a tiny bit different. But overall, I'll watch it and review it, but it's definitely one of those things where I can't say that I'm like, let's go, Ahsoka. I hope it's good. But again, I really do feel like Filoni needs to have other writers in the room, because a lot of the best stuff from the Clone Wars TV shows and even the Rebels stuff came from other writers and like him guiding them. Like, he can be the Kevin Feige, I think, but he needs other writers around him, I think, to really flesh out those ideas and characters a lot more. And when he's kind of left to his own things, we get Ahsoka season 1 where it's just kind of vague and muddled. And I need this to be the last thing Ahsoka's in. Again, I don't hate the character. I think she's fine. I just think she's overstayed her welcome at this point. Like, you've literally had her die one time off screen and avoid Order 66 and all that, and just to kind of have her stick around but not also have an impact. It just, she feels intrusive at this point, in my opinion. You could have easily had the Rebels characters come around and be in this show and just call it something else, or call it Rebels or whatever, but not have her in it. The show doesn't feel like it knows what to do with her, and I think that's just because the character itself has kind of run its course, personally. But again, I'll keep an open mind. I hope it's good. But moving on to all of the Marvel stuff that we got, because we got a ton from D23, and my predictions were way off. First, we got another teaser for Doomsday, which, from the description we got at Comic-Con, this is basically the Comic-Con trailer. And like I said before, I think this one was way better than the first one. This did a lot more for me because it was more Doom-centered as opposed to just, hey, remember all these characters that you know and love from all these movies 20 years ago and 10 years ago? Like, it actually felt it was more about this movie than just being like, member berries everywhere. Again, I can't say that my hype level is at the same level as like Infinity War and Endgame. I just don't think they've built up enough to it to really get me sold. But there were some moments that I really liked in this trailer. I loved getting to see Mr. Fantastic and Reed be together. Like the moment where Reed is yelling, "Did you do this, Victor?" That felt straight from the comics. It was so cool to finally see that. And to see that relationship and connection front and center. Again, I said this in my article last week. It's a travesty that they had to come out and clarify that Reed and Doom have a history and a relationship. Like that should be a given. That shouldn't be something we have to question. And that tells you all you need to know about the lack of buildup here. Again, it was cool seeing Doom resurrecting Sentinels. That's very much a Doom thing, and him referring to himself in the third person. It's like, it's cheesy, but man, it's cool. That is Dr. Doom. He goes, "I am Doom." Like, yeah, that's Victor. That's who he is. The big issue I had that I'm not going to get into the backgrounds and all that stuff because again, I it's clearly not finished yet, so I never judge effect shots until the final movie. But the one issue that I did have was with Sue's speech at the beginning. Her saying that Reed used, or not Reed, that Victor used to be a kind and caring person. I'm sorry, but that's not Dr. Doom. Like, he hasn't been a kind and caring person, at least in the comics, since he was a kid. And even then, he had a little bit of that Doom arrogance to him and that chip on his shoulder, and rightfully so based on his upbringing. And the only person he really cares about in the comics is his mother, and then maybe Cynthia, the woman he loves. But it's saying that he's like a kind and caring person. Like, he cares for his people in his own egotistical way. But I don't agree with that characterization for Doom, and I don't want them. He is a sympathetic character, but he's clearly a villain, and I'm worried that they're trying too hard to make him sympathetic in the way that they made Thanos. And even then, I wouldn't call Thanos a sympathetic character. It's just, he has some depth to him beyond just, I'm evil bad guy trying to end the universe. So for me, it's just one of those things. Again, it's just one line, so I'm not going to be like, "Oh, they ruined Doom," but it's just, again, I want this to just be Doom. And then also during the speech that Doom gives in the trailer, he talks about how you've stolen lives and everything, and we see a lot of images in the trailer of various kids from the Avengers that the Avengers have had, which leads me to believe that those plot leaks may be true of him trying to take all the Avengers kids and use them for something, in which case I'm not down for that. Like, Doom is many things, but he doesn't mess with kids. Like, he again, there is some humanity to him where he's like I may be an egotistical maniac, but I'm not like a child kidnapper murderer. Unless it's for the greater good. Like, I could see him going after Franklin, and I thought that Franklin Richards would be kind of the MacGuffin of this film. But if he's going after all the kids, I don't like that. And again, it feels like a retread of Infinity War, where it's like, we're going to watch Doom collect all these MacGuffins, which in the case of this movie would be all the kids. And I'm just like, do something different, please. And so again, I'm keeping my complaints until I actually see the movie, because again, speculation and leaks, anything and everything can change. We're still 4 months away from that movie coming out, but man, is it coming up fast. Also, I do think it screams a little bit of, not desperation, but insecurity if you're having two trailers coming out back to back months. That, to me, that seems like, we need to build hype. And I mean, it's working because according to reports, Avengers Doomsday pre-ticket sales are outpacing Spider-Man Brand New Day. So it looks like it's already going to open up with $1 billion. So, I mean, I'm just some dude on the internet, but clearly whatever they're doing is working. So that's good. I hope that this doesn't mean that they take the wrong lesson from this and be like, nostalgia still sells and all that. It's just, please don't. We want new stories. Don't just keep reminding us of the movies that came out 20 years ago, please. So, I mean, that's great. I'm not going to be a hater. for me, my excitement is still, hey, it's an Avengers movie. It, at the very least, I just want it to be fun. If it's just 2.5 hours of a decent enough story and action figures interacting and click and smashing together, I'll be happy. Like, I do not think this is going to be on the same quality level as Infinity War or even Endgame. So, but again, I would love to be proven wrong. And on top of that, they also released the homework that or required viewing list for Avengers Doomsday. And according to Disney Plus and Disney themselves, the following 22 is it 22? Yeah, 15 movies and TV series, not 22. I can't count. But here are the movies that they say are required viewing for this movie. It's X-Men, X2, Captain America: The First Avenger, The Avengers, Infinity War: Endgame, Loki the TV show, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Captain America: Brave New World, Deadpool and Wolverine, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four: First Steps. So that's a lot of homework to do, and again, it's interesting. I mean, it makes sense, especially with the X-Men movies, because if there's some younger people who, golly, I feel old saying that. If there's younger people who have never seen those movies, then it makes sense to be like, hey, before we kill them off for the 10th time or whatever, watch these movies so you can kind of get an idea of who these characters are before we kill them again. So, I mean, again, overall, it looks like it's going to be fun. Like, I don't think it's going to be a movie where I come out and I'm just completely disappointed. But I'm just, my hype levels are not at Infinity War Endgame levels. Like, it looks fun. It's a movie where I can just turn. I think it's going to be a turn your brain off kind of comic book movie where it's just, again, it's going to be action figures beating each other up. I'm not expecting like a deeply, deeply compelling story, but I know the Russos are capable of that. But again, it's just, for me, the lack of build-up really, really hurts this movie. Because, again, none of those movies listed there, except for the post-credit scene of Fantastic Four, has anything to do with Doctor Doom. And of those TV shows, you have, let me see, like 3 or 4 or TV shows and movies. You have maybe, let's see, Loki, I guess Endgame would count, No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Doctor Strange. So 4 or 5 of those movies actually deal with the multiverse. And even then, it's like, okay, Endgame barely, like they touch on it briefly, but that's more of just time travel. Spider-Man: No Way Home, it's the multiverse is there, but it's kind of just a plot device more than an actual focus of the movie. Doctor Strange, I will give them that. And then Loki, yes, I will give them that. So really, of those two, or of those, 2 of them are actually like super, super important to multiverse stuff. So again, it's just the lack of build-up. It really hurts this film for me. But moving on, we had some other big news. Again, Marvel really just, I'm surprised, and I wonder if maybe the reason we didn't get this at Comic-Con is because some deals were not finalized, but we now have a cast for the X-Men. So obviously we've talked the last couple of weeks about Kit Connor being cast as Cyclops and Samara Weaving cast as Emma Frost. Well, they brought out everyone, and now we have a little bit more idea of who's playing who. So we have those 2 that I just mentioned. Sadie Sink, of course, is playing Jean Grey. Christopher Abbott is playing Professor X. Maya Boyd is playing Storm. Adam Driver is going to be playing Mr. Sinister. I'm really excited about that. And Indy Navariat is playing Rogue. You might know her from the movie Obsession. She was the main character in that. Got a lot of accolades for that. I haven't seen it yet, so but I've seen her in Superman Lois, and I thought she was good in that for the material. And then some of these people like Christopher Abbott and Maya Boyd, I just haven't seen in anything, so I can't really comment. But I trust Marvel's casting. But overall, this is a really good cast. I again, Adam Driver playing Mr. Sinister. I'm glad he's not playing Magneto. I'm glad they're kind of keeping Magneto off the board again. I think you can kind of build up to him and make him like your first Avengers villain for whatever this new universe is going to look like. So kind of focusing on Mr. Sinister and Emma Frost. And with Emma Frost, I'm really excited because we can have longevity in this universe where we see her start as the villain and then slowly move to becoming a hero in an X-Man. I would love to see that. And again, there's just so much that the Fox movies didn't do that is on the table here. And especially because now that they're in the MCU proper, there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about. Well, do we have the rights to that or not kind of thing, which really just opens up the possibilities here. So I'm really stoked for this. Again, I think it's all going to be good. I trust that all these actors are capable of playing their respective characters, and it's a little interesting too because, I mean, obviously this isn't the ending of this isn't the end of casting. I'm sure there's going to be more, but it definitely looks like they are kind of mixing and matching the original X-Men lineup from like the Stan Lee era, and then also adding some from the Claremont era, obviously Storm being the big one there, but I'm happy with that. I wonder if we're going to get an Iceman in this movie, or if they're going to save him for the next one. And it might be good to kind of start out with a smaller X-Men team, and maybe one that has some heavy hitters like Jean Grey and Storm and Rogue. I mean, Cyclops is no slouch either. So I imagine we'll probably get, I would guess maybe Iceman or at least Beast, I think would be the other big one. I think we're going to get one more big name X-Men character before all is said and done. But on top of that, we also got a release date, which is May 5th, 2028. So this means that there are now 3 Marvel movies coming out in 2028 after Secret Wars. So in 2028, we got X-Men first in May, then Ghost Rider in July, and then Black Panther 3 in December. So that's interesting to me, especially because, you know, obviously James Gunn for the DCU made a big deal about not overloading the audience with too much content. And so he was like, here, we're going to do 2 movies a year and 2 shows a year. So I'm a little surprised that Marvel's doing that, but there also is talk that Marvel Studios is actually pulling back from their Disney Plus shows. Now we've got VisionQuest, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, coming out, and then of course Daredevil season 3 coming out next year. But I think Daredevil season 3, I think that's the last season we're going to get of Daredevil for a while, at least until maybe a few years down the line, where okay, hey, now that we've got this new universe kind of settled in and we're in a good spot, making we can make that a thing again. But like there was talk of the Nova movie that's coming out. Apparently that was supposed to be a TV show at one point, but they're now making it a film. And honestly, this kind of makes sense considering what we talked about last week, where we had like Wonder Man canceled. They're slowly pulling back a lot on their Disney Plus shows. They didn't really announce anything new besides what had already been announced before. And again, it makes sense because these cost a lot of money for not a lot of return. And I can see it just being something where, because you want to build up to stories, not wanting to require things like 2 seasons of Loki or 2 seasons of Wonder Man or whatever it would be, requiring that for viewing in order to see the next Avengers movie. So I wonder if they're like, okay, we can't have that next time around. Like, that's just too much to ask of audiences. And especially because when they originally did the Disney Plus shows, they had talked how like, oh, hey, it's not going to be required viewing for the movies and TV shows, but slowly and more that no longer was proven true. And I think it was just because it's, in order to make the TV shows relevant, you got to have big characters. And obviously if you're having guys like Falcon and Bucky in heading their own show, well, suddenly you're paying actors for a 6 to 8 episode TV show as opposed to a 2.5 hour movie. So that can get pricey just there. And then you have more effects. Then you have to try and figure out a way to balance the effects budget while also making it compelling. And you can do that with something like House of Dragon or Game of Thrones and stuff where it's like, okay, if we don't have a lot of like big budget effects in this episode, that's fine. We can just have people kind of walking, talking, since that's more of the central idea of the show, is more of that political intrigue and drama, where it doesn't require having a dragon in every other scene. Whereas with superhero shows, obviously at some point I want to see my superhero. Like I don't want to see a Falcon and Winter Soldier show where I don't see Falcon for 10 episodes or I see Falcon in the first episode and the last episode, and then everything in between is just him walking around in plain clothes. It's like, well, that's not what I come to see. It's like I want to see Falcon. I want to see Captain America. Like I want to see him. So I can understand why with Daredevil you can get away with it a little bit easier because there's not powers, quote unquote, in that one, where it's just him, beating up guys street levels. So you can have that be a little cheaper, and it's like, okay, we can have him in the Daredevil suit for almost every episode because it's not like we're having to CGI a bunch of extra effects behind him or with him and stuff. So it makes sense that they're kind of pulling that back, and again making it easier on the audience to get more involved and invested once more, where it's not like, hey, you don't need to have a streaming show subscription in order to watch and be all fully caught up on the MCU. And I know especially a lot of it, looking back and just from reports we've seen, a lot of it was Bob Chapek, the previous CEO of Disney before Bob Iger came back, who was kind of really pushing Disney Plus right before the pandemic. And then the pandemic kind of got all these streamers fooled into thinking that, oh, this is profitable. We're going to get everybody just watching all of our shows, spending premium money to not have to watch ads and stuff. And it's like, well, then the pandemic is over now and things have opened up again. So people are doing other things. We're not trapped in our houses, unable to do anything except watch TV 24/7. So I think that was some of the issue there, is there was orders on high telling Kevin Feige, hey, I need at least 2 or 3 TV shows a year to sell this streaming service to people. So now that I think the pressure is off to do that, he's like, yeah, we're going back to making movies. That's what we started with. So I think going forward, they're going to be doing Disney Plus shows kind of like more in the Daredevil realm, or maybe more of the special presentations like Punisher and Werewolf by Night, where it's like, this is a character that we don't think we can make a full-fledged movie about for 2 hours, but hey, I have a pitch for like a one-off special where it's like, oh, hey, for Christmas, let's have, Spider-Man Christmas, where it's just for 50 minutes of Peter Parker running around on Christmas and having to fight, I don't know, the Kingpin or whatever. I really want to see that happen. Please, Sony and Marvel, I don't care what legal mumbo jumbo you have to do to pull that off, but please give us Spider-Man and Kingpin fighting each other, and throw Daredevil in there too. Make me happy, please. But I could definitely see it down the line where it's more special presentations, stuff where it's like, okay, if it is a character with powers, we have the budget to really make that look good, as opposed to having to stretch it out over the course of 6 to 8 episodes and kind of just twiddle our thumbs for 2 of them until we can have an excuse to get them back in the suit or whatever. So it makes sense. I again, like I said last time, I didn't think that there was anything malicious behind it. I think it was just more of practicality of, this isn't working, this isn't making us money. I mean, if we're spending $200-300 million on a TV show, it's like, how much of that is getting covered by subscriptions? Like, there was never really anything on Disney Plus, like one singular thing that like was having people that really seemed to be driving people to buy it. They don't have their House of Dragon really anymore, in my opinion. Like, according to the streaming numbers, which again are all kind of vague guessing anyway, like Daredevil never cracked the top 10 ever for all the streamers. I can't remember the last one that did for Marvel. I want to say, I think it might have been Moon Knight, and that was in like 2022. So Yeah, it's not one of those things that was sustainable and never was going to be. So it makes sense that they're kind of pulling back on that. But we do have a Disney Plus show from Marvel coming out in October, and that is VisionQuest. And we've got our first trailer for that. And I have to say, and I said this before on my Substack, I put a note out there, and I think I'm more excited for VisionQuest right now than Doomsday. It comes out October 17th, I believe. Let me see. Once again, I'm very professional, not having to look. It is releasing October 14th. Okay, so I was close. October 14th. It's going to be 8 episodes long, so I think it's going to end. That would put it right at the end of, right before Doomsday comes out, which makes sense. And then you can kind of have that hyped in. And I wonder if there's going to be maybe a little Secret Wars teaser or something there. But this, you can definitely feel the WandaVision influence in this in a good way, where it's like, here's Vision in his mind palace trying to figure himself out, and it's very introspective and more heady than superhero fights. Like, obviously they show there is some superhero fights in it, but the thing that I was happy to see back was James Spader as Ultron. I loved him as that character. I like Age of Ultron a lot. I know that it's kind of the ignored sibling of the Avengers movies, but I really like that movie. It's really the only movie I feel that was just, here's a normal Avengers story, as opposed to the world is ending or we're just seeing the team form for the first time. Here it was just, here's an Avengers movie. Here's just an adventure with the Avengers. Adventure time with the Avengers. Ugh, that's a tongue twister. But yeah, I really like this. It is kind of funny that they're using human avatars, because clearly that's just, hey, we can't have a bunch of CGI models walking around. So let's have just the actors playing it. But like, Paul Bettany and James Spader look to have just wonderful chemistry. And again, I could just sit, if the show is just them two just riffing off each other, I'm good with that. But definitely intrigued by the premise of Vision, one trying to find himself and trying to become the Vision that we knew. Because if you remember at the end of WandaVision, we find out that the Vision that starts out in that movie was nothing more than a construct made from Wanda's powers, and the government made White Vision, which was from the body of Old Vision, but it didn't have any of his memories. It was made just as a weapon. But then all of the memories from Wanda's construct poured into that Vision, and he kind of was like, okay, I gotta go deal with this, and just left. So we're finally picking that up after, holy crap, 5 years. That came out in 2021. Time flies, guys. But yeah, so I'm excited to see this. I really am intrigued, and I think it's just going to be a fun, just again, little introspective show from the MCU. And again, things like this, I think, is what they'll be doing with Disney Plus going forward. Again, where it's more just kind of weird and fun and not really important to the overall story. Again, I could see it maybe ending with like Vision will return in Secret Wars, and it's just he pops up and, you know, maybe we get Wanda in Secret Wars. I do wonder if they're going to bring her back or not, because I think Elizabeth Olsen will want to come back, and the way they ended Doctor Strange 2 was very open-ended as to whether or not she actually died. But overall, I'm really excited for this. Intrigued where like Vision seems to have a son. He's like, how is that possible? And James Spader is so perfect in that trailer. Just like, oh, muzzle tough, and then just gives Vision a big kiss on the cheek. That's the kind of stuff I'm like, all right, I'm here for this. This looks great. I'm really, really excited, but I can't wait for that. I think it's going to be really good. But Marvel seems to kind of slowly be finding their groove back a little bit, where they seem to be more confident of like, here's what we're doing, here's what we're building towards. It doesn't feel as just roughshod, just shotgunning ideas everywhere the way it was for the last few years, especially more in like 2020 through like 2023, where it's just kind of like, here's this thing, you like that? No? Okay, well, we'll move on to something else. So it really feels like they're just, let's get through Doomsday and Secret Wars, have our last big hurrah with the main actors that have been mainstays in the universe for almost 2 decades now. let's do that, and then we can reset and kind of just slowly build back up with new actors and new versions of those characters and kind of redo the whole thing and not be as bogged down with continuity. Which, again, they're learning how it is in the comics, where it's just you have like 5 different levels where it's like, well, this used to be canon until it was retconned in issue 512, or that was the origin until we just decided we are going to ignore that and just never bring it up again until the writer did that in issue 700. And it is kind of funny to see the movies suddenly be like, oh, man, how do the comics do it for 60 years? It's like, by the seat of our pants, man, we barely know what we're doing. Like, I actually read a book where back in the day, in the old Marvel offices in like the 60s and 70s, that they actually had just like files with note cards of like, okay, here's where this character is currently at in continuity, and here's where this character is, and here's what's going on here in this book. So basically, it's like, okay, if I'm writing Spider-Man, okay, well, what's the Hulk doing at this time? Okay, he's here, so okay, I can incorporate him into the story, and it'll make sense. So that's the level of nerdiness that was going on at the time. Maybe they need to do that again in at Marvel Studios, because it did feel like for a while they were just kind of like, Hulk had an entire movie happen off screen in She-Hulk, and he has a son, except now we're just going to pretend that never happened. And, was it a dream? Was it just She-Hulk goofing around? We don't know. So I'm excited. I'm glad they're getting their groove back, because, again, I love Marvel. I got a bunch of Marvel comics. I just got the book MCU, The Untold Story. I'm excited to read that. I got that for my birthday. So, I'm excited for X-Men. There's a lot to be excited about, and I hope, again, they've kind of learned the lessons from the last few years of like, okay, we did some things wrong. Here's how we're going to make sure we don't ever have that happen again. Because, again, I agree with the Miss Marvel actress. Apology. I think it's Imali. I can't remember her name. I apologize. She's awesome, but she talked about how, like, with the success of Spider-Man, hey, there is no superhero fatigue. It's just they want good movies. And I totally agree with her. It's just, give us good movies, build things up properly, take time to actually get the story you want to tell done before actually filming, instead of trying to figure out the ending 2 months before the premiere. I'm looking at you, Ant-Man 3. So I think if they can learn those lessons, then we are in for, I think, another age of Marvel kind of being able to be back to where they were before. And I'm hopeful, because that's what I want. I want good Marvel and DC movies. I'm a nerd. I'm a loud nerd in the basement. So it's like, I want these movies to do good. It's just, they need to recognize why things didn't work. And it wasn't just, well, we did too many things. It's no, because you did too many things, the quality suffered. So, but we'll see. I'm hopeful. I'm excited. Things are happening, and it's going to be good. I really do think that they kind of got things back on track a little bit, because I like Thunderbolts of Fantastic Four a lot. I like Spider-Man Brand New Day. So the last few movies they've had really have felt more like the Marvel Studios that we had before the pandemic, before Endgame. So I'm excited. I'm excited. But that's all the news for this week. Let's get into paid subscriber questions. And of course, like I said before, I'm running a sale right now, 20% off. So if you want to be able to submit your own questions, just head on over to Substack and click on the subscribe button, and it'll walk you through how to add yourself to the paid tier and become a paid member. And again, to the ones that have done that, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate all of your support. But the paid subscriber question we have for this week is as follows. What is a movie that objectively speaking as a trained film critic, is a total mess, bad script, terrible pacing, cheesy dialogue, but you secretly love every single second of it anyway? This was a hard one, because there's a few. I mean, first thing that comes to mind is the Michael Bay Transformers movies, although some of those later ones got a little bit too long and just too, what in the world are we doing? But my answer to this is going to be Amazing Spider-Man 2, the second Andrew Garfield movie. Not a great movie. Studio interference is written all over it. you can clearly tell that there are tonal shifts all over the place. A lot of goofy dialogue, but man, so much fun. It's a fun movie where it's one of those movies that's not insulting my intelligence while I'm watching it. Like, I can sit and be like, yep, this is not working at all. This is dumb. Why do we have Dr. Kafka acting like a goofball mad scientist as he's lowering Electro into his tank and just nah ha ha ha, like that? All we needed was him just like laughing while lightning shot behind him. But we got the fun soundtrack from Hans Zimmer with the electro music, dubstep. It's great. The death of Gwen Stacy was done really well, even if Green Goblin was shoehorned in there at the last second. And that design is not great at all. But I mean, it's a really good live action Spider-Man suit. A lot of fun. Andrew Garfield is a lot of fun in it. So that's my answer to that. But thank you so much for that question. And before we get out of here, I'm going to just tell you what I'm watching. So I finally finished House of Dragon. Good season finale. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Dune, where you're watching somebody and you're thinking, oh man, like I'm rooting for him. Oh man, I know you don't want to do this, but like they're backed into a corner, and oh no, now you're the bad guy. Oh, I've been following the villain the whole time. That's kind of like how it felt. It was really well done. Cool action scenes at the end with a lot of battle and dragon action. So I was very thankful for that. Some character deaths that were satisfying. It was nice to kind of have that and not just stuff where it was just people dying for shock value the way it was in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. So enjoyed that. Obviously, I watched the end of X-Men 97, and I'll have a review for that out next week, actually. So be on the lookout for that. X-Men 97 Season 2 spoiler-filled review will be coming out next Wednesday. I always do spoiler-filled reviews for TV shows just because I think it's just too much to try and dance around that. It's at the same time, by the time I have them out, it's like, okay, all the shows out, you can watch all of it. It's not like a movie where you have to actually like go to the theater and make time for it. It's like you can watch it literally wherever, whenever. So it'll be spoiler filled, but I thought overall it was good. A little bit unfocused compared to the season 1, but still really fun to watch. And again, it's one of those things where watching that gives me hope that maybe Marvel Studios really knows what they're doing with X-Men, especially if they see the reaction and love that show is getting. It gives me hope that this X-Men movie is going to be really good. I also started Yellowstone with my wife. I've never watched it before, neither has she. We've watched the first episode. I'm not the biggest Taylor Sheridan fan, just because I feel like he writes the same story and characters each and every show that he's done, just based on the clips that I've seen of like Landman and all the spinoffs for Yellowstone, where you have the hardened main character who's just a cool dude that doesn't take crap from anyone, and then you have his wife or daughter she's also too hardcore and doesn't take crap for anyone, but she's also really hot. And then you have the son that's a little bit more mellow and somewhat of a disappointment, but the father really likes secretly, that kind of thing. So after the first episode, I'm not quite sure about it, but I'm going to give it a few more episodes before I make a final judgment, and my wife feels the same way. My biggest thing is just after the first episode of Yellowstone, it feels like it's trying too hard to be tough and cool, where it's just like, yeah, look at this guy. He doesn't take crap from anyone. He's ready to shoot people. And it feels a little bit too much of that. And it's like, well, if this is going to be a drama, you have to be able to write scenes where people can spar verbally and not just with actual physical strength or violence. And so I'm interested to see how that, if that kind of shows up more, because I know pilots can sometimes be a lot different from the rest of the show, but I am also of the opinion that I shouldn't have to wait a season or two before I get to the show that I actually want to watch. So we're going to give it a few episodes, and I'll let you know how we feel after it, after we do that. But that's all I have for today. Oh, Substack, really quick. Currently, I have my review for the movie The End of Oak Street up right now on the Substack, Loudner in the Basement. Check that out. surprising movie. It looked intriguing to me, and that's why I added it to my watch list. But after seeing it, it really surprised me. But go check out my review to get my full thoughts on that. And like I said, next week, X-Men 97 Season 2 full spoiler review. I will also be watching Lanterns sometimes in the next few days, so I'll let you know what I thought of the first episode next week. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much, and I will be back next week. Bye.